Welcome to his feet again, our Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Member of Parliament from St. Ann Northeastern.
Madam Speaker, I rise this afternoon to make my maiden contribution to the sectoral debate. I remain humbled at the opportunity to represent the wonderful people of St. Ann Northeast in this chamber. I thank my councillors, constituency executive, party workers, and most importantly, my more than 45,000 constituents.
Minister, permission to speak from a seat.
Yes, ma'am. Permission to speak from a seat not usually my own.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my more than 45,000 constituents for the journey thus far. I also acknowledge the ones who have journeyed from Northeast St. Ann to be with me this afternoon and thank them for coming. I look forward to the coming chapters in the development journey of NESA. Today, I have the responsibility of outlining Jamaica's sustainability agenda and the supporting programs for the current fiscal year while sharing our broader national ambitions and sustainability targets. The work to make Jamaica grow sustainably has been entrusted to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. I am proud to work day in and day out with the Most Honourable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, to work on this critical body of work. I thank Mrs. Arlene Williams, Permanent Secretary, her able CTDs and technical staff for their yeoman efforts and thank them for being here this afternoon as well. I also extend my appreciation to the boards of directors, senior management, and staff of the agencies assigned to me. Additionally, I thank my direct team who sacrificed so much to provide significant support to me personally, including my advisors, executive staff, and CPOs. We are nothing without family, Madam Speaker, and I pause to thank my own family for their love and support, especially my wife and son, and beyond that, I thank God for His mercies and His grace. Madam Speaker, we've all said we want Jamaica to be the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We have collectively agreed to this lofty goal in bipartisan fashion as our Vision 2030. As a nation, we've agreed to work toward achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Madam Speaker, there has been much made in the public domain related to the amalgamation of the subject areas and agencies under MEGJC. But this joined-up approach to government is anchored in the Prime Minister's stated philosophical outlook that sustainable economic growth cannot be achieved through environmental degradation, and further that prosperity cannot be steeped in pollution. This Parliament should recall the appointment of Jamaica's first Special Envoy for Sustainability to include the environment, climate change, and the oceans. And I note the support from the member from East Kingston for Ambassador Professor Webber's appointment. And I think, as an aside, member, I noted your comments related to parliamentary oversight. They have my support, and after a particular event, I'm sure we will structure same when we're still sitting here and you're still sitting there. This appointment reflects a commitment of the Andrew Holness-led administration to seamlessly integrate policymaking with academia. This should leave no doubt, Madam Speaker, that this administration will make science-based decisions relating to its management of the environment, climate change, and oceans. Madam Speaker, this administration has prioritized the modernization of the regulatory and legislative framework that governs our environmental management. The policies that this administration has completed to date include the National Biosafety Policy, the Emissions Policy Framework, the Climate Change Policy Framework, the Watersheds Policy, a new Forest Policy, a policy for the environmental sound management of hazardous waste, and an environmental management systems policy for Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we have also completed and tabled in this Honourable House the Green Investment Strategy for Jamaica. In the present fiscal year, the following policies will indeed be finalised and tabled in this Honourable House, some in a matter of weeks. These include the overarching Protected Areas Policy, the Keys Management Policy, the National Swamp and Freshwater Policy, and yes, Madam Speaker, the Beach Access and Management Policy. Madam Speaker, colleagues should recall that we recently completed the following legislative work and passed the amendment to the NRCA Act and Wildlife Protection Act to allow for increased fines and related custodial sentences, as well as for the first time allowing body corporates to be charged for breaches under both acts. We've also completed the Protected Areas regulations under the NRCA Act. Added to this, Madam Speaker, we are nearing completion and expect to complete the following this fiscal year: the repeal and replacement of the Forest Act, the amendment of the Wildlife Protection Act, overall amendment supporting the ratification of the SPA Protocol. We've also given heavy focus on the subsidiary legislation of the NRCA Act and expect to complete and pass this year the amendment to the wastewater and sludge regulations, to be completed by the end of May this year, the amendment to the air quality regulations. We are also expecting to complete the regulations governing transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal, and the long-awaited environmental impact assessment regulations are being reviewed for tabling, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this list is impressive but not exhaustive. It is important that we explain how these legislative and policy reforms will actually bring about a cleaner, greener, and more resilient environment. Madam Speaker, this administration has developed a 20-point roadmap to reach this destination. We have dubbed it JA Sustain, or JA Sustain. This plan is rooted in our deep commitment to improve levels of environmental protection, increasing the capacity for monitoring and enforcing our laws, and significantly increasing our restoration efforts where degradation has taken place in the past. Madam Speaker, this roadmap will focus on the following areas. Firstly, improved air quality. And to achieve the goals and targets of the emissions policy, the government will focus on the following: clean air through reduced emissions from continued energy transition to renewable sources, in line with our NDC commitments seeking a 50% generation capacity from renewable sources. This administration, Madam Speaker, will implement tailpipe testing for all vehicles at the point of licensing. We will implement state call measures at all of the nation's ports. And Madam Speaker, we will continue greening and electrification of the national fleet. The second focus, Madam Speaker, is indeed on water quality. Jamaica has already promulgated new sewage and sludge watershed regulations and policies. This year, the government will expand monitoring and testing capacity, Madam Speaker, by training registered community-based organizations to help with sample collection to significantly expand our monitoring of our watersheds and waterways. The third focus, Madam Speaker, is on land use. Increased protection and restoration efforts have marked our tenure. Madam Speaker, since 2015, Jamaica has led lobby efforts as a part of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature to get global buy-in on the target to protect 30% of land and national EEZs by 2030. The 30 by 30 target was adopted as part of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework at COP15 last year because of nations like Jamaica. Jamaica, by passing 14 new forestry orders last year and the declaration of the Cockpit Country Protected Area and the declaration of the Black River Protected Area, has so far achieved 25% protection of its landmass, Madam Speaker. Jamaica is expected to achieve 30% protection of its terrestrial mass this year, a full 5 years ahead of target. This will be achieved with the expanded protection of mangrove forests in southern Clarendon and with declaration of the Long Mountain Reserve. Madam Speaker, additional new protected areas will include Canoe Valley along the border of Clarendon and Manchester, Montpelier in St. James. Indeed, as we mentioned, the Long Mountain Reserve in St. Andrew. We'll expand the protection of Bengal in St. Anne, and we are expanding the Negril protected area, Madam Speaker. We will also move to ensure that Industry Cove in Hanover is included in the Negril protected area, and this is something that we believe will protect biodiversity for future generations. Madam Speaker, the Forestry Department is going to do something that we believe will be quite novel. We will declare the Constant Spring Golf Club a forest management area. This will preserve for generations this important green space, whether or not it remains in golf or not, but we will ensure it remains a green space for generations to come. Madam Speaker, our efforts at forest restoration have been bolstered with the procurement of a tree relocator, which is now in country. This is critical as we seek to balance the development agenda while maintaining forest cover. So this machine can actually relocate trees with particular root structures when roads are being expanded, when houses are being built, and will allow us to save some of the deforestation managing development. Madam Speaker, colleagues will recall that we launched a 3 million national tree planting initiative in 2019. I'm happy to report that the Forestry Department has achieved this target. These trees have had a survivability rate in excess of 80%. Madam Speaker, it is time for a new target. I have directed the Forestry Department to plant a further 3 million trees over the next 5 years, Madam Speaker. The Forestry Department has also now completed a new land use, land cover, change assessment for the entire island. Now, this will give us much better visibility and management of our forests. But what has been our result thus far? Now, Madam Speaker, what's not known, despite how many times it has been said, is that Jamaica's forest cover has actually increased over the last 9 years. So we have actually improved our forest cover, Madam Speaker, and this is on the back of our protection work and restoration work. And that is evidenced by the RED+, which is a UN standard studies which have been completed in Jamaica, which have assessed us to have increased our forest cover. NEPA has completed the preparation of a national ecosystems restoration plan in alignment with the 2030 agenda for sustainable development aimed at restoring degraded freshwater, marine and terrestrial ecosystems. This initiative promotes enhanced livelihoods, agroforestry, and enhances soil stability and improves climate resilience. The fourth pillar, Madam Speaker, is the reduction of pollution and improved waste management. This critical pillar is absolutely necessary for Jamaica to sustain. I want to pause here and acknowledge the efforts of the Honourable Desmond Mackenzie and his senior team for the overhaul of the NSWMA. We are a cleaner nation today than we were in 2015 because of the efforts of you and your team. The next phase of the effort will include increased waste collection through expansion of the NSWMA fleet, new standards and protocols for toxic waste management, further removal of unrecyclable plastics with an expanded plastics ban, and increased recycling efforts. And I think it's important to understand that in 2015, Jamaica recycled less than 5% of the plastic bottles produced monthly. Today, through the efforts of the recycling partners of Jamaica and government stakeholders, Jamaica now recycles more than 42% of the bottles produced monthly, leading the region in bottle retention. This effort will be bolstered as the government expands its pilots for plastic separation in government facilities and is prepared to support the efforts of recycling partners with budgetary support, as has happened in the past and will be doing so in the next cycle. We will also be taking a serious look this fiscal year and introducing a new pilot to expand e-waste disposal and recycling. The fifth pillar, Madam Speaker, is the assertion of Jamaica's thought leadership on global sustainability issues. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has led global lobby efforts to strengthen action on oceans, environment, and climate change issues over the last 9 years. We will further strengthen our position by ratifying our ascension to international agreements. Our engagement of scientists at the board level of environmental agencies will further accomplish this. The establishment of a National Sustainability Advisory Council, which will bring together academia, civil society, and indeed civil servants. Jamaica has also offered itself as host for international fora, including but not limited to the Our Oceans Conference in 2027 and the UN Oceans Conference in 2029. Our sixth focus, Madam Speaker, is indeed the restoration of critical natural assets. Madam Speaker, this year the government will further advance critical planning with a view to commencing the following activities before the end of this fiscal year. The member from Western Westmoreland will be happy to note we expect to complete the work to re-wet the Negril wetlands this year, Madam Speaker. Coastal revetment and engineering works are being designed and the programs put together for Helsha, Rocky Point, and indeed Negril. We expect to complete the restoration, Member Sibley's, for the Mason River Environmental Management Unit. South Clarendon Mangrove replanting in partnership with USODECO, CCAM, and indeed the Forestry Department will be expanded to ensure greater protection for the entire southern Clarendon belt, Madam Speaker. We are bringing environmental protection to life, and we're doing so with the expansion, restoration, and relocation that is planned to start this year for existing sewage plants, Madam Speaker. We expect to expand and improve the capacity this year of the Soapberry treatment plant, doubling its capacity and moving it to tertiary treatment. I'll speak more on that in a little bit. The member from Kingston Western will be happy when we get into the line plans for the improvements in West Kingston, which are 30 years overdue, Madam Speaker. We have also committed and have started the process through the PIAB process to facilitate the relocation, Madam Speaker, you'll be happy to hear this, of not just the Negril sewage plant, but we intend to relocate the Harbourview sewage plant for the citizens of Harbourview, and we are well advanced in the design process. We have also given our commitment in Eastern St. Andrew for the relocation of Long Mountain sewage lines that should have never been there, as well as we have given the commitment, Member Jackson, for the improvement, restoration, and significant increase in allocations to maintenance for the Portmore sewage ponds. We are moving for the planning process to accelerate for the movement of the Bogue sewage ponds, which should have never been there. That will take some more time, but we're advancing the planning, Madam Speaker. Sewage is amongst the worst environmental issues that we face, and this administration is taking it seriously. Our eighth pillar surrounds the issue of climate and resilience financing. Madam Speaker, recognizing the urgent need to mobilize and effectively manage financial resources for adaptation, Jamaica has embarked on an ambitious journey to develop a comprehensive country platform for climate finance. This platform serves as a coordinated approach to attract, manage, and deploy climate finance from various sources, including multilateral funds, bilateral donors, private sector investments, and innovative financial instruments. Madam Speaker, the Government of Jamaica, through the Development Bank of Jamaica, is advancing the establishment of the first Jamaica Blue-Green Facility, a national mechanism designed to mobilize climate finance at significant scale. The international partners include the Green Climate Fund and the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. This is ably supported with the collaboration of national partners to provide concessional loans, grants, and technical assistance to accelerate investments in clean energy, climate-resilient infrastructure, and sustainable agriculture, among other climate-vulnerable sectors. Madam Speaker, we will not launch a fund without funds in the way that other nations have. This fund is expected to launch this year. Madam Speaker, at the heart of Jamaica's climate finance strategy is this Blue-Green Facility, a pioneering initiative designed to streamline and upscale funding for adaptation and resilience projects. This facility represents a holistic approach to climate finance, integrating blue and green terrestrial ecosystems into a unified funding mechanism. Madam Speaker, to note, we have completed the greening project for the Bank of Jamaica, and it is expected that the Jamaica Stock Exchange will complete their processes allowing them to list blue and green bonds this calendar year. Madam Speaker, as our 9th pillar, we are continuing to honor our obligations under the Paris Agreement. This year, Madam Speaker, the government will complete its updated nationally determined contributions. It will complete its long-term strategy for emissions reduction, and it will complete its national adaptation plan, filing them with the UNFCCC as per our obligations under the Paris Agreement. Madam Speaker, climate adaptation is critical to Jamaica's future. We are on the front lines of climate change, and as the member from Eastern Kingston would have spoken to, it is indeed a grave crisis. We are experiencing sea level rise already. We're experiencing warming temperatures. We're experiencing deteriorating soil quality and indeed reduced pollination rates. But when one contemplates that in 2022, Jamaica experienced its worst drought. In 2023, we experienced our second worst drought. In 2024, we experienced our 4th worst drought. In 2024, in June, we had our hottest day ever, while then having a Category 5 hurricane hit us and Tropical Storm Raphael. Madam Speaker, we are on the front lines of a climate crisis and have much to adapt to. Madam Speaker, we expect temperature records to continue to be broken year in, year out, affecting SIDS disproportionately. It is why completion of our National Adaptation Plan and mobilization of finance is indeed critically important. So that members can understand, you have 28 kilometers of Kingston and St. Andrew that requires coastal revetment work. The cost per kilometer is $10 million for something that unlocks no new economic activity, simply protects older investments before. That gives you an idea of the scale of the climate crisis that we face. Our 11th pillar, Madam Speaker, is indeed harnessing our blue economy, and that was spoken to in detail by Minister Green. We've also aligned around our energy targets as our 12th pillar, and Minister Vaz would have spoken to this at length last week. Our 13th pillar, Madam Speaker, for Jamaica to sustain is indeed increased river and watershed protection. Madam Speaker, the country has rightfully expressed increasing concern over pollution incidents, illegal extraction, and degradation of the nation's rivers and watersheds. I will highlight 2 major steps being taken to bolster protection of these natural assets. As announced by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, we will establish a river control authority to bring greater oversight and cohesion to management in this area. This will be launched in 2026. Madam Speaker, the Rio Cobre early warning system was launched in April 2024. NEPA was tasked to develop and implement a plan to prohibit the direct discharge of trade effluent into the Rio Cobre. In this regard, Madam Speaker, the agency undertook a program of regulatory enforcement and sensitization, training to protect the ecology of the Rio Cobre watershed. The agency completed the following activities. We have completed the watershed assessment to identify and point to non-point pollution sources. We have reviewed the discharge licenses for every company operating along the Rio Cobre with a view to deal with particular breaches. High-risk facilities located within environs of the revisor have been engaged to identify and implement alternative effluent disposal methodologies. 28 local community members were trained as environmental and river wardens. Madam Speaker, and this is critical, NEPA has already advised all holders of discharge licenses, some who have held for longer than 20+ years, that consistent with government directives, discharge into the Rio Cobre must cease. They are working with stakeholders to achieve this calendar year. Madam Speaker, we have also prioritized public education and interventions. The government will intensify public education efforts to spur positive attitudes and behaviors towards the environment. We will embark on a campaign to reduce litter, engage citizens to report environmental abuses and breaches, and change particular consumption habits. We will invest $150 million annually in this effort. This, however, cannot be accomplished without the support of civil society. The most impactful anti-litter campaign was conducted previously by the Jamaica Environment Trust with No Dirty Up Jamaica. It is time for this to be re-energized, as this effort was a proven winner. We will speak more to this in short order. Additionally, Madam Speaker, we have focused on improvements in our diagnostics capacity. This is our 15th pillar. The Met Services and the WRA hydrological monitoring stations, MOH live health monitoring, are being upgraded to real-time monitors to create a water health dashboard. We are intent on purchasing a supercomputer next fiscal year and supporting the University of the West Indies with the development of a water quality lab to achieve this, Madam Speaker. I also pause to acknowledge Evan Thompson, and I believe he's here. He was elected recently by the World Meteorological Organization unopposed to be chair of Region 4, and for that we acknowledge his tenure. I also acknowledge Peter Clark of the WRA, who is also here with us, who was also elected by the WMO to the same region as a member of the executive body. Madam Speaker, improved marine protection and restoration is a critical focus of ours. Jamaica currently protects approximately 14% of its EEZ. Jamaica is firm in its commitment to achieve the 30% target of protection by 2030. The technical work to achieve this is indeed progressing in earnest. In the next term of our government, we will focus on increased financial support for existing fish sanctuaries, coral reef restoration and replanting, working with the UA Marine Biology Lab, the Alligator Head Foundation, and indeed the Nature Conservancy and others, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the regulatory and legislative reforms will achieve Jamaica's compliance and alignment with international treaties, including the SPA Protocol, which we expect to bring to conclusion in June of this year, Madam Speaker. We have also signed the Biodiversity Beyond the National Jurisdictions, Madam Speaker, signed last year, September, and it is expected to be ratified by Jamaica at the UN Ocean Conference, also in June, Madam Speaker. There has been a long-running discussion related to the Escazú Agreement. The government has decided to allow for a fast tracking of the ratification process, and this will be accomplished with an amendment to the Access to Information Act specific to government's environmental agencies to allow for the complete review of the ATI Act for the rest of government to take place in its normal time frame. Madam Speaker, we will also be significantly increasing our focus on the issue of increased enforcement capacity. It is impatient of debate that the agencies tasked with environmental management are understaffed and unable to provide the nation the level of surveillance required. At a recent meeting with members of civil society and the NGO community, we committed to the creation of a working group to look at this issue with the agencies themselves and the Jamaica Constabulary Force. It should be recalled, Madam Speaker, that Jamaica has in the past had an environmental warden program. However, it failed. We do intend to reinstitute it, but we've asked this working group to look at the reasons why it didn't work in the past so we don't make the same mistakes. We have also reached out to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, who has pledged significantly increased focus because we know many environmental crimes are being driven by organized criminals, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we've further improved our focus on town planning. Madam Speaker, sound environmental management requires good planning, and in that vein, I'm proud to advise that 100% of the island is now covered by at least a provisional development order. In fact, smart master plans for the urban areas of Negril, Halfway Tree, and Constant Spring have been drafted and are going through the review and consultative stage. These smart master plans are expected to be finalized this fiscal year. Indeed, the draft smart master plan for Crossroads is nearing completion. It should be noted that the work has begun also on a draft smart Mandeville master plan, Madam Member from Central Manchester. Now, these master plans are incredibly important to trigger economic growth. But I point to the 20th pillar of our focus, which is indeed beach access. In this season of newfound causes and commitments and wild promises, this issue is again front and center. The government, through the NRC, with broad-based consultation, including the private sector, civil society, and public commentary, has completed the beach access policy. and it is presently before the Cabinet for final review. In that review process, we continue to monitor particular matters before the courts. This policy will balance the rights and expectations of citizens with that of local and foreign investors while adhering to the laws of Jamaica. But, Madam Speaker, beach access doesn't require policy solely. It requires investment and coordinated developments. It is for this reason, Madam Speaker, the government, through the efforts of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, the UDC, and the Fisheries Division, continue their efforts to expand and improve beach access. Madam Speaker, it is for this reason the UDC is proud of Harmony Beach Park in Montego Bay. It is for this reason we are proud to announce the development of the Negril Public Beach Park this year, which will provide access to citizens, an improved craft market, and an entertainment zone, and that will commence this year, Madam Speaker, and I bring your attention to the graphics and the imagery associated with the same on the screens. Madam Speaker, this is beach access. I also bring to your attention that in this fiscal year, the Tourism Enhancement Fund will commence the development of 3 upgraded beach parks, namely the Paget Beach in St. Mary, the Success Beach on the eastern side of St. James, and for those in the gallery, the Priory Bathing Beach, also known as Fantasy Beach. I will not encroach into Minister Bartlett's presentation. However, Madam Speaker, let there be no doubt that this administration is building quality beach parks for Jamaicans to access freely. However, Madam Speaker, there is an additional point to be made. This government has, through its regulatory process, sought to preserve access points to beach, long accessed by citizens. I will further highlight below a pathway which was recently installed at a hotel development, a brand new hotel development, I believe the last one to be completed in Jamaica, in Trelawney. That was a term of their approval, meaning hotels that are now getting approval are required to put in place pathways providing access to citizens, access to beaches that they previously had access to. So they're able to access the foreshore, and we ensure that they have appropriate parking and other such systems. This is indeed for those who wish to go and visit the beach. It is found in proximity of Rio and Royalton in Trelawney. And with other developments that are coming, you will see similar pathways providing access. You see, beach access, though complete on paper, requires investment, and this administration has chosen beach access for Jamaicans and continues to choose Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, changing weather patterns caused by climate change require Jamaica to increase its capacity to forecast weather systems and track our actual experience. I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that the final work to bring Jamaica's radar system online for the Meteorological Service of Jamaica is ongoing and expected to be complete this very week, ensuring that the Met Service has the necessary tools for the upcoming hurricane season and is not left solely dependent on external sources. In this fiscal year, the government will increase the efforts to modernize the Met Service, digitizing its operations to be able to provide real-time measurements and reports. It is well known, Madam Speaker, that Jamaica has a bimodal weather pattern, and cyclically we are experiencing drier conditions. We expect that to break later this month. However, I thought it important because of the very impact on so many of our industries, including agriculture, just to share briefly what the current weather situation looks like. That was the April 2025 rainfall amounts, so you understand where there are indeed challenges. This is your rainfall outlook probabilities for the next 3 months. We see that we're not necessarily expecting the drought to break. Beyond that, however, we expect to have significantly wetter conditions in August, September, and October of this year, Madam Speaker. But we expect to have significantly improved our equipment capacity to monitor and predict these systems because of the investments we're making into the Meteorological Service. And the reason we had to touch on weather is because it's the single most important factor for water, something I know that affects every member of Parliament in this House and every hopeful member of parliament who wants to get into this house. Madam Speaker, the vision of Andrew Michael Holness is simply to ensure all Jamaicans have access to potable water and sanitation by 2030. This government, through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, has managed the water sector with that goal in mind. Approximately 90% of Jamaicans are served either by the National Water Commission, municipal systems, or private suppliers, with the NWC serving approximately 79% of that cohort, which is a 4% increase from 5 years ago. So we are growing the utility footprint of the Water Commission. Madam Speaker, this administration's vision for the water sector focuses on sustainability, resilience, and equitable access. We have eight key pillars that define this vision: universal access to clean water, sustainable water management, energy usage in the water sector, wastewater recycling and treatment, public-private partnerships, education and awareness, equitable resource distribution, and resilience to climate change. Madam Speaker, this administration, your government, has invested unprecedented sums through the capital budget of the National Water Commission and the Consolidated Fund in bringing this vision to life. Significant bureaucratic bandwidth and regulatory focus has been directed towards these pillars. We have made major gains, though we have major work to do. 150,000 Jamaicans, Madam Speaker, have enjoyed improved water supply through our investments this term of government, Madam Speaker. However, we are, and have admitted, we are targeting universal access, which requires major infrastructure upgrades and faster deployment of project investment. It is for this reason that this administration will invest in your water supply at a rate not seen since the 1980s, and not seen previously to that since the 1940s. Madam Speaker, this investment is structured as follows. The National Water Commission is actively investing 10.1 billion Jamaican dollars with support from the Consolidated Fund this year, Madam Speaker. The NWC will, from revenue, conclude $1.18 billion of works already underway through its revenue, Madam Speaker. Further, the Rural Water Supply Limited is currently investing $597 million in small water systems. And further, the National Works Agency is guiding the investment of some $5 billion through the Spark program to repair old leaking pipes. But we go further, Madam Speaker. JSIF is also currently investing $1.18 billion Jamaican dollars into 3 water projects in St. James, and these are already underway. You heard my colleague, minister and friend, speak of the significant investments to come under the National Irrigation Commission, the single largest investment in our farmers in certainly our lifetimes, Minister Green. Madam Speaker, what this all amalgamates to is an investment of over 22 billion Jamaican dollars this fiscal year into Jamaica's water sector, while further unlocking 14.2 billion Jamaican dollars through PPPs, not saddling Jamaicans with the debt burden or using their tax revenue in that way. Madam, fixed dollar Jamaican rates, which had Jamaica followed that, we wouldn't be here now. Madam Speaker, many of these projects require more than a single budget year for completion of the construction phases. You know, it's really ironic who's talking about high interest rates. It's incredibly ironic. But, Madam Speaker, many of these projects will require more than a single budget year for completion of the construction phases. However, the fiscal space to invest at this staggering rate didn't come about by accident. It is through the administration's careful management of the economy. The bureaucratic focus on guiding these investments through the investment appraisal process didn't happen by accident. And these budgetary allocations certainly did not happen by accident. Madam Speaker, I've outlined the vision and strategic framework. I've outlined the budget allocations to be made to achieve this vision. I will now highlight in greater detail the activities supporting each pillar. Universal access to water won't simply happen by accident. It requires significant infrastructure investment. This map shows the planned investments. Rather, no, this map actually shows the completed water systems last fiscal year. This map, Madam Speaker, shows where we're investing that 10.1 billion Jamaican dollars to improve water supply for Jamaicans further. Madam Speaker, the distribution of capital projects is island-wide, and many of these projects are spread across multiple fiscal years because of scale. A lot is often made of announcements. However, we have been diligently working on ensuring the delivery of capital works. Last year, several projects were announced, and I believe it's important that the country is updated on their status. The following projects were completed last fiscal year. Firstly, in Orangefield, Northwest St. Catherine, completed improving water supply for 880 people, $10 million. St. Catherine Northeast, Bermadi, $14 million. St. Catherine Southwest, $5 million, improving Kimble Pen system. St. Catherine Southwest, Family Avenue, improving Bodles. Clarendon Southwest, the Springfield Racecourse system, with that line being improved for 384 Jamaicans. In St. Elizabeth Northeast, the Run-It system was completed at a cost of $10 million, 260 persons benefiting there. Number Road also in St. Elizabeth Northeast, Content Road in St. Elizabeth Northeast, Ginger Peace in St. Elizabeth Northeast, St. James Southern, Eldersley, Cambridge have also benefited from investment. And my friend from South St. Elizabeth, Southwest St. Elizabeth, you know the work that we have done in Slipe, and I know my friend from Southeast St. Elizabeth can attest to the work done in Kingdom Hall. South St. Elizabeth Southwestern can also speak to a system commissioned, an investment, a very heavy investment in middle quarters, supporting New Holland as well. The member from Trelawney Northern can attest to the investment made in Braco. The member from St. Mary Western can speak to the investment in Mason Hall in phase 1 of that system. The member from St. Ann Northwest can speak to the Brownstown Retreat investment, which is underway. The member from St. Andrew East Rural can speak to Constitution Hill, I would imagine so, Madam Speaker. And I can go on, but we will circulate. We can take our time. We can take our time. But the one that I am particularly happy to report on, because we have gone through a lot of trauma with it in the area of Brownstown. And for those here from St. Ann, they'll understand that we had the collapse of the Minard well 2 years ago. This well is amongst the largest and deepest wells in Jamaica. It supplies 30,000 Jamaicans with water, and 2 years ago, it simply collapsed right before the local government election. Boy, bad luck worse than Obia. But I am happy to report that work on that system at Minard Well will be complete this week, and we expect to commission in the next 14 days, Madam Speaker. I think Minister Green has taken good care of it. But, you know, we have a whole suite of investments, whether it is in St. Catherine Southern or St. James West Central in Fairfield, whether it is Fort Charles in Southwest St. Elizabeth. But we also have small systems, Madam Speaker. You see, a lot is made when you announce a $100 million project, but sometimes it is the small rural water supply systems that give you the greatest joy when people have been without water for decades. Projects completed include rainwater harvesting systems in schools like Buff Bay High, Mount Pleasant Primary School, Rock Hall Basic School, Marymount High School, and the Lapland water supply also was complete. The John Reed catchment tank improved and completed. But, Madam Speaker, we are in the season, as the Prime Minister have called, of promises. Except our promises come with substance, because the budget for these promises are printed in the big yellow book. So, Madam Speaker, we are already underway with work. You know, it's funny, Madam Speaker, because just this morning, we both commissioned a system, a solar system, benefiting West Rural and indeed Northwestern St. Andrew. and broke ground on a piping system that benefits both Western St. Andrew and, of course, West Rural and Northwestern St. Andrew. So these promises are coming with pipes, they're coming with construction, they're coming with project completion, they're coming with improved collection at the Water Commission because there are more customers, because you have connected more persons without increasing the tariff rate. We are collecting over $4 billion monthly without raising the tariff rate because we have connected more Jamaicans. So it is not an illusion. It is not song and dance. But Madam Speaker, we are already underway and will complete this fiscal year work on the Jordan Runwell line from Highgate, Islington. The member from North Central Clarendon will know that we are already underway on the pipe works in Rock River that will facilitate the development of the reservoir that we intend to build in that area this year. We are already on supply and installation of 5 glass bolt steel bolted tanks in Hope, Mount Airy, Louisville, Happy Grove, and Whitehall. Works are already underway to upgrade Springfield to...
Ask him. House Leader, the member's time for speaking has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that the member be given an additional 20 minutes, 25 minutes to complete his presentation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Not yet, member. Members, the question is that the member be allowed 25 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are also midway in installation of pipelines, storage tanks, and M&E equipment in Rosemount, Camelot, Discovery Bay. And this is a $120 million investment. The member from Manchester Central can also attest that we are midway in $770 million of further investment in the Greater Mandeville system. And for anyone who's driven to St. Elizabeth in any time recently, they will see the large pipes going to gutters and the pipes that are going beyond there. Madam Speaker, for any of you who have traveled to Montego Bay via the northern route, the North Coast Highway, you will have noticed that we are midway in installation of a transmission main that has cost the government some $100 million to significantly improve water delivery from St. Anne's Bay all the way to Landovery, Madam Speaker. This is necessary to strengthen the development and to supply the increasing population along both northeast and northwest St. Anne. We are also actively increasing our sewer capacity in areas previously not sewered. The member from Eastern St. Andrew and Southeast St. Andrew can attest to this, that we are investing in excess of $1 billion in both potable water supply and new sewer lines in their constituencies. But Madam Speaker, this is not the end. On the rural water side, the member who has a community by the name of Riversdale can attest that we have commenced investment and construction is underway for $315 million of a new water system for a community that has waited close to 50 years for water distribution improvement. So whether it is phase 2 of Mason Hall in St. Mary or Cascade, or whether it is the Freehill system, or it is indeed the upgrades planned for Rocky Point, or whether it is the new lines coming off of the Itabaral system in Southeast St. Mary, or indeed the Gale line. We're coming to yours shortly, Minister. We're coming to yours shortly, Minister. But there are new capital projects. There are new projects, Madam Speaker, which have not yet started construction. And for those who have a problem seeing groundbreaking ceremonies, I caution you the next few weeks will be heavy because we have completed procurement, contract award, and mobilization on the following projects. Black River Town Center to Arlington Pipeline parity, $238 million. The Dornoch to Barron Hill Reservoir replacement, 200,000 gallons, $20 million. The Dornoch Water Treatment Plant to Barron Hill Reservoir Transmission Main replacement at a cost of $205 million. We'll be doing work to restore and to improve because there is some damage at the Hermitage Dam, so we'll be doing $151 million of work there. Madam Speaker, we are under contract. Yes. Madam Speaker, we have under contract the Jericho Wells for Yuatan and to York Street Pipeline for $98 million. For South Manchester, the member will be happy to know that Grovetown to Cross Keys mains replacement is under contract at a cost of $210 million. He will break ground, however. Christiana Spalding is happy to hear that we are under contract for $53 million, Madam Speaker. The Constant Spring Water Treatment Plant and Ramshorn Tunnel raw water intake is being rehabilitated also to make sure that that plant is running at scale. Juno Crescent, I believe the member from Southeast Clarendon can speak to the fact that this is a critical system. Central. No problem. We're helping everybody, so sometimes it happens. We have completed the Rhine Park water supply at a cost of $50 million. We have started work in Santa Cruz on the bypass mains replacement at a cost of $50 million. We have completed the procurement and have mobilized for Whitehall to Newmarket and started the work there. The KSA transmission mains for Ferry to Rock Pond announced broke ground this morning, benefiting 3 constituencies, Madam Speaker. You see, Madam Speaker, we have an impressive program of work. There is also expectation that the transmission mains for the Helsha Main Road will be upgraded with the road widening exercise, member, and I'm sure you're fully appraised of that one. We have over $7.3 billion of works procured under contract, awaiting start dates. Some start this week, some start next week. But the team at the Water Policy Unit at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation are pushing out submissions every week going to Cabinet for approval because these projects have been being built and dealt with over a long period of time. But, Madam Speaker, there is one that I think is particularly important. And this one is one that was announced by the Prime Minister last year. And it is the Western Water Supply and Resilience Improvement Program. Madam Speaker, the totality of this project will cost $350 million US. However, the terrible drought which affected Western Jamaica disproportionately in February to May of last year prompted the bringing forward of phase 1 of the project, which included major capital works to replace the transmission main from Martha Brae to the terminal reservoir in the center of Montego Bay, and the transmission main from Lucy all the way to Negril. That phase will cost $169 million or 27 billion Jamaican dollars. Madam Speaker, this phase of the project involves the upgrading of 28 kilometers from St. James to Trelawney and 37.5 kilometers of pipeline from Lucy to Negril. This project will benefit over 250,000 business and residential customers, while facilitating major developments in the tourism and residential, commercial, and development sectors. It is for this reason, Madam Speaker, that the Cabinet has approved the designation of the Western Parishes Water Supply and Resilience Program as a national development project. The construction phase of this project, Madam Speaker, will commence within 3 weeks. Now, to note, because of the significant scale of this investment, the construction phase will last 3 years, and there will be some traffic disruption during this work. We plead for patience, but this is a generational investment that will solve a lot of the issues that the member from West Central, from Northwestern, from East Central St. James call about daily every time the line collapses. It will significantly support the members from Eastern and Western Hanover, and of course the member from Western Westmoreland, who was on the front lines of the crisis last year, will appreciate this investment. This is not something to come. It is something that we expect to break ground on in the middle of June. And this is a major, major investment, Madam Speaker. And the pipes are in Jamaica. So we are underway with this work. Madam Speaker, we have spoken about rural water expansion for the better part of 25 years. Both administrations have pursued it through particular routes, but both of us have discussed it on the back of a CDB-funded project that just simply hasn't come together over the last 25 years, despite it being pursued. I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that for those who would have read the Sunday dailies, Sunday newspapers rather, this week, they would have seen ads in the paper for hiring of staff for the project management unit. And I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that we will be going to procurement within 2 weeks. So a project tied up for 25 years will start once procurement is complete. But these projects won't happen in a year, and I don't want anyone to leave thinking that they will happen in a year. These are next year's groundbreakings, member from West Rural St. Andrew. And they will include the Aguata Vale to Jordan Run in Southeast and Central St. Mary. It will include phase 3 and 4 of Mason Hall and the expanded phase 5 member from Western St. Mary. It will include Albert Town to Ulster Spring in Southern Trelawney. It will finally include the long-promised system for Union and Balaclava in Northeast St. Elizabeth. It will also include the Port Morant Airy Castle in Eastern St. Thomas. And the member from Southwest St. Anne will be happy that finally the 8,181 customers assessed to need this system will also benefit from an $800 million injection in that area. Madam Speaker, that map is indeed, I believe, coming up. And these are all the systems that we've worked through, which I'm happy to circulate to members. But this shows, and if you think of the population centers that have grown around these communities, you know why we should have done it 25 years ago. But we are finally at that point, and I'm happy to have put some work into that particular space. Madam Speaker, increased service reliability through improvements in storage capacity and upgrading infrastructure at key catchment areas is a critical focus. During the upcoming fiscal year, the NWC will undertake a comprehensive review of options for expanding 2 major storage infrastructure that serve the KMA, including the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam. As it relates to the Hermitage Dam, we'll be examining the possibility of increasing the storage capacity of the dam by either raising the crest level of the dam or constructing an entirely new additional reservoir to capitalize on the overflows from the existing dam, which often occurs. Colleagues will recall that last year the NWC undertook a full engineering assessment of the Hermitage Dam at a cost of $150 million and did find some weaknesses in the structure. Madam Speaker, the work associated with the development of the Rock River Dam in north central Clarendon is also underway. We have commenced land acquisition, site preparatory works, and pipe works are already underway at a cost of $150 million. We've already mentioned the Greater Mandeville water system, but this project is being undertaken at $2.7 billion and expects to bring NRW in the parish of Manchester by the end of the calendar year below 50%, coming from a high of 72%. The major project that the country requires is, however, a national non-revenue water project. This is a project that will span a decade. This is not a single administration project. This is indeed a major one. We have completed the first phase of the procurement, and through pre-qualification, we have identified 4 international engineering firms that are going through their procurement process with DBJ. This is a PPP contract. This will see the investment and commitment of over $300 million for distribution mains as we target NRW nationally of 30%. Right now, we're between 68 and 70%. I won't touch immigration issues today, but I will touch on public-private partnerships. Madam Speaker, this government has actively encouraged collaboration between government and private enterprises and communities to improve water infrastructure, maintenance and innovation in water management technologies. This is to ensure that we are able to execute PPPs in the water sector. We have embarked on a strategic partnership with the IFC the subsidiary of the World Bank, to achieve this. Madam Speaker, a major project that has been discussed for a number of years has finally entered the construction phase. We're happy to report that this nationally important project of the Rio Cobre water treatment plant is indeed underway and is expected to be complete in 20 months. Now, this will produce some 15 million gallons daily of water that will supply Spanish Town, Portmore, and Kingston and St. Andrew. And yes, member, we have committed to supplying the communities that surround the water treatment plant. And you'll recall that discussion last week. Now, this is a first of its kind PPP. It is denominated in Jamaican dollars at fixed rates and has the ability for refinancing every 3 years. But more importantly, there is a component of the project that as an asset is depreciating, it must be replaced by the PPP operator, meaning that at the end of the contract, a new water treatment plant will be handed to the people of Jamaica, having served its time, but a brand new plant will be handed over to us, a first of its kind in sustainable water management. Madam Speaker, we have also focused on the planning guidelines. Certainly, we have completed our rainwater harvesting guidelines, we've completed our water resources master plan, and we've designated 15 new ecologically sensitive areas, and those were tabled in this House last year. But we've done further work with the Water Resource Authority, which is not sexy work, but needs to be understood because it affects every part of our water supply. We have completed studies on saline intrusion assessment in the Rio Cobre and Rio Minho limestone aquifers. We have completed the Rio Cobre moratorium assessment, and we continue our monitoring of the Essex Valley agricultural project to make sure there's not over-extraction. We've also given some focus, and this year we will be completing the Yala Alluvium aquifer modeling, which has shown signs of over-extraction, which must be studied. The other major issue that we face in water is one that every MP should understand, and it's energy use in water. There's nothing worse than your constituent calling you and saying, we're not in a drought, rain is falling, but I do have water at my home, and you hear the word single phase. For that reason, the government has committed to building significant resilience into its water system. It is looking firstly at the systems that supply hospitals and infirmaries. We will be putting backup generators on all of those systems first, so that should we be hit by another storm, those systems are not compromised. Now, we are the largest customer of JPS, so no one is suggesting here that NWC is going to create instability in the grid and come off of the system. But there is an absolute need for resilience, as well as for cost containment, for the government to pursue particular energy projects. The first is a 45 megawatt floating photovoltaic system on the Mona Reservoir. This $62 million PPP has gotten its power generation license, I believe 10 days ago from the OUR, and is completing its wheeling license and pricing with the JPS. We expect it to break ground on construction next month also. But we also have a suite of 11 projects which are projected to save the NWC $593 million annually. Now, these projects include the just concluded Forest Hills 350 kilowatt solar facility. They include the Leaders Avenue similar 350 kilowatt facility, the Fraser's Content solar facility, the Mona floating solar. We also have a lease in place with Wigton where we'll be putting in 12,000 kilowatt solar facilities at particular spaces. We're also working with JPS on a meter mapping and georeferencing all NWC power use sites. This is 82%. We also have an operation which we call Operation Kilowatt, which is looking at energy efficiency right throughout the NWC system to make sure we're not using unnecessary current. And this is within the NDC partnership and being paid for by our multilateral partners. We are also, Madam Speaker, expecting to conclude the procurement in the coming weeks on the Greater Mandeville Water LNG project. Now, everyone knows that the water is incredibly expensive to pump in Manchester because it is all uphill. That energy bill can sometimes top $55 million a month. We are looking at a structure that will facilitate an LNG plant to significantly reduce this cost. And that is already gone to market, and we expect to have an announcement in 2 weeks, member. But we're not just looking at the power generation, we're looking at the power usage. We have already procured 42 new pumps to increase reliability and reduce energy usage. These have been procured at a cost of $900 million and are expected to all be installed this calendar year. The NWC is also, as I said, midway in procurement of 12 major generators, and these are the ones that supply your major hospitals and infirmaries. This is being done at a cost of $500 million. The Rural Water Supply Limited has also focused on solar supply systems, and they have done so in Mile Gully, Western St. Mary, Lapland, Southern St. James, Mother Flora in Northeast Manchester. Madam Speaker, 3 other systems will be completed within this quarter, expected to be done next month, which include Free Hill in Northwest St. Anne, Bunkers Hill in Northern Clarendon, and New Eden in West Portland. The NIC, and Mr. Green would have spoken to it, has also installed 3 major irrigation systems using solar energy. The issue of single phase is one that we can't leave as is. It is for that reason myself and Minister Vaz have convened a working group between the senior management of the JPS and the senior management of the NWC to look at the maintenance of lines and to make sure that we're planning together so that the issue can be brought under control. For far too long, it has plagued the operations. It affects both the revenue of the NWC and affects service delivery for Jamaicans, and we are working to bring it to a close. Madam Speaker, the fifth pillar is the wastewater recycling and treatment. Madam Speaker, the KPMG has completed the business case and presented it to the Cabinet on the expansion and divestment of Soapberry. The government intends to go to market this year for a supplier and partner who will expand the capacity of Soapberry by doubling its capacity while moving it to tertiary treatment. The land is already reserved and was reserved at the time of its acquisition, and that will expect $114 million US. But Madam Speaker, all of this is for naught. All of this is for naught if our citizens in downtown Kingston have to navigate sewage leaks on a daily basis, member. And it is for that reason, as you know, the Prime Minister has instructed, we're already doing, I believe, $200 million of work on Spanish Town Road, but we will commence next month an additional $480 million of line replacements going through Western Kingston, and will continue to do so until this issue is brought under condition. They have suffered for far too long, but we have started, Minister. We have started. It is incredibly important as we improve our sewage systems. Madam Speaker, colleagues and those at home will have an opportunity to read the presentation, so I'm going to focus on one last program in closing, and that is the NWC amnesty, Madam Speaker. In November 2024, the Prime Minister announced that the NWC would provide an amnesty to customers cut off from the utility for more than 6 months. This amnesty has benefited pensioners, path recipients, and members of the disabled community, with sometimes up to 100% reprieve, in other cases 50%. Madam Speaker, as at May 16th, over 34,000 customers have engaged the process and are seeking to benefit from the amnesty. Madam Speaker, total reconnections thus far, 7,901 customers have benefited, had their debts written off and been reconnected to the Commission. This has also yielded some $547 million in uncollectible revenue. But the more important number, Madam Speaker, is that this administration, through this initiative, has removed $1.4 billion of debt from the pensioners, path recipients, and the disabled community who are suffering under this mountain of debt. And for that, we are happy, Madam Speaker. They needed their water. We have returned dignity to these households. Madam Speaker, this initiative, for those who have engaged with the Water Commission, they don't need to worry about the date. Once their name is in the system before the end of the month, we will be working through the process, and we intend to reconnect all 34,000 customers, Madam Speaker. We also, very shortly, for the number of concerns that have been raised with me by colleague members of Parliament. We are taking a very serious look at the small and micro business sector who also have asked for a similar program. We are going to conclude this for the pensioners and path beneficiaries first, and then we will make an announcement very soon for our small and micro business sector. Madam Speaker, we have chosen to invest in sustainability. We have chosen to strengthen our environmental, regulatory, and legislative framework. We have chosen to invest behind that and restore areas like the Negril wetlands, and Helsha coastal engineering is being done. We have chosen to invest at an unprecedented rate in the water supply of Jamaicans in urban Jamaica, in rural Jamaica, in every part of Jamaica. This government has chosen to make Vision 2030 a reality. The people of Jamaica have chosen us, and we have chosen Jamaica. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, another excellent presentation by a young, upcoming member of Parliament. Yes. We should applaud him one more time. And so, Madam Speaker, I now ask that you call on the Member of Parliament for Manchester Northwest, Mr. Michael Phillips, to make his presentation.
Make welcome to his feet the Member of Parliament for Manchester Northwestern.
I will only speak of what is the reality.
We always, and like now, like